Hare Jaya Radha Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Parastasmattu bhavanyo Vyaktu vyaktat sanatana Yasa sarvesu bhuttesu Nasyatsu nabhinasyati Parastasmattu bhavanyo Vyaktu vyaktat sanatana Yasa sarvesu bhuttesu Nasyatsu nabhinasyati. Yet there is another unmanifested nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Purport. Krishna's superior spiritual energy is transcendental and eternal. It is beyond all the changes of the material nature, which is manifest and annihilated during the days and nights of Brahma. Krishna's superior energy is completely opposite in quality to material nature. Superior and inferior nature are explained in the 7th chapter. Om Ajnanatimanandasya Kinandana Salakya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Parasmat. There is another world. That world is transcendental. It is not subjected to all the material influences that exist here. Lord Brahma is on another time scale than we are. And therefore, for him, the 4 yugas, which for us are taking a very long period of time, are only small parts of his day. Because Sahasra Yuga Paryantam, in one day, there are 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. So then one can understand that Lord Brahma said, oh, there's a Kali Yuga, not even on his planet, because the Kali Yuga never manifests in the higher regions of the universe. It is said that in the heavenly planets there always is the atmosphere of Treta Yuga, and of course Lord Brahma's abode is known as Satya Loka, so always that fully transcendental atmosphere of Satya Yuga is there. So whereas in Satya Yuga there is no Varnashram. In Satya Yuga there is only one class. In Satya Yuga all are transcendentalists. Only in Treta Yuga begins the division of Varna and Ashram. So in this way, when Lord Brahma is looking at the long stretches of time from our perspective, to him these are just moments. Just moments. So how insignificant are all the events that are taking place in this world? How minute. It is the spiritual world that is truly the actual reality. We recall that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was publishing different newspapers, magazines, periodicals, and so on, all simultaneously, and that he was commenting about the spiritual reality, and that some said, but how can you publish a paper about this all the time? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, if a newspaper can report on what happens in one town or in one city, then why would we not report on the entire spiritual world? The material world is known as the Ekapad Vibhuti, whereas the spiritual world is known as the Tripad Vibhuti, or that means 3/4 of the total manifestation, and the material world only 1/4. So, and how small is a town or a city in that entire realm which is the material world, not only made up of one universe, but made up of unlimited universes. And yet, the spiritual world is by far greater. It is said that the material world is known as Devidam, the abode, which is controlled by Durga. Durga, it means, Dur means difficult, Ka means to go, difficult to escape. Durga, the superintendent of the material world, is also known as Maya. Same person. And has various weapons in the arms, 10 arms, controlling the 10 directions. That means there's no escape. She's got it covered from all sides. What can be said? Then the material world, Devidam, is separated from Haridam, the spiritual world, by the Viraja river. That Viraja river is also known as the causal ocean. It is there that the different universes are clustering together and are floating upon the causal ocean, or on this river Viraja, and it is there that Lord Mahavishnu is resting on that causal ocean, and from the poreholes of his body these universes have emerged. Then it is said, then there is the Brahmajyoti, which is vast, and within this Brahmajyoti there are large Vaikuntha planets, and more than half of the entire spiritual sky is taken up by Goloka, Vrindavan. More than half. So Golok Vrindavan is the largest, by far the largest planet in the spiritual sky. All Vaikuntha planets are much smaller and yet much greater than all these universes that we know here. And then what the Lord does is He does what is, in terms of physics, not possible. He makes the 3 quarters appear in the 1 quarter. In other words, He makes the spiritual world appear in the material world. And how is it possible, mathematically speaking? But we remember the story Narada told the cobbler and the Brahmana, that the Lord was pulling an elephant through the eye of a needle. And Brahmana said, how is this possible? It's not possible. Physics cannot be done. And the cobbler said, how amazing is my Lord? How amazing is my Lord that he can do such things. So Narada said, you believe that he can really pull an elephant through the eye of a needle? Yes, yes, yes. Why? Why you believe this? The cobbler said, look, I'm sitting under this banyan tree, and there are so many seeds are falling on the ground. And in each of these seeds, there is another banyan tree. See? So, if he can put a whole banyan tree in a seed, then can he not pull an elephant through a needle? In this way, the cobbler actually wasn't just blindly believing. He had a great transcendental vision, and saw the miracles in front of him. He was not dull by the material energy, and not able to see. Rather, he was seeing in front of his own eyes how the Lord was working miracles. And therefore, he had great faith. So yes, the Supreme Lord has manifested the spiritual world within the material world. So this is indeed amazing. That somehow or other, in the smaller dimension of the material world, the full spiritual world is also manifested in all its transcendental potency. Still, it is said that due to space, some things are adjusted. Like it is said that Govardhan Hill is much bigger in the spiritual world, actually, much larger than the one here. But the same, at the same time. The same potency, very, very much the same. So whatever may be, we are seeing here the great mercy of the Supreme Lord. Krishna is described as Daksha, as being expert. And it's said he is expert because he can fulfill many purposes all at the same time. So why did Krishna place the spiritual world in the material world? One is because Krishna was about to perform his pastimes in the material world. So he needs the spiritual world there. So of course that spiritual world is eternal, so it's eternally there. When this world is destroyed, that world is still there. Vrindavan will not be destroyed. The covering of Vrindavan will be destroyed. The auto rickshaws and all those other horrible things. But the Dham will remain. That will not ever cease to exist, because that manifestation of the Dham is eternal. We have then, so that is, why did the Lord do so? One reason was because the Lord wanted his associates to come, and he required an appropriate environment. Srimati Radharani was only agreeable to come if Vrindavan would be also there. That's a big reason. But simultaneously, because the Lord is expert, he was also thinking, here are all these living beings. They've turned away from me. They are somehow or other forgetful of me. What can I do? What can I do to give them some mercy? And then he thought to himself, why give them some mercy? I will give them all the mercy. Why only some? He's Krishna. He gave us all. He gave the entire spiritual world in the material world. Everything is there. So this is absolutely amazing. This is wonderful. But somehow or other, it's hard to go there. It's so far. No time also. It's hot and dusty and so many things. No comforts also. Difficult. You can watch the video at home. It's easier somehow or other. All right. Krishna understood that also. So again, Krishna also he also manifested that same spiritual world within us. It is also there within us. And simply by chanting Hare Krishna, we can awaken that full understanding. Lord Chaitanya said, for most people, the mind and the heart is the same. He said, and my Moraman Vrindavan, my mind is Vrindavan. And then speaking in the mood of Srimati Radharani, Lord Chaitanya is saying, and since to Krishna, since you like Vrindavan, why don't you place your lotus feet there in my mind? So in this way, ultimately, the consciousness of a devotee becomes Vrindavan. So how does that work? It means that the spiritual world is not far. We might think that it is far. And even in scriptures, apparently it's far, because we remember that story of Arjuna, that some Brahmana had big trouble because he was married, and each time when his wife was delivering a child, then right after birth, the child would just disappear. Gone. So that was a great calamity, and didn't just happen once, happened several times. So the Brahmana was calling out, what is happening in this place? Is there no one? Is there no Kshatriya left here to protect the Brahmanas? Have all the Kshatriyas become eunuchs? Right? So Arjuna couldn't tolerate that. That was too much of a challenge. Yeah. So Arjuna said, I am a Kshatriya. I will protect you. The Brahmana said, you, Arjuna, what can you do? Well, then Arjuna stood guard as the Brahmana's wife was about to deliver, and stood in front of the house, and no one could approach that house from anywhere. And then the child had disappeared. Now when the Brahman, I forgot to mention, when the Brahmana had challenged Arjuna from, can you do it? Then Arjuna swore. He said, yes, I shall do it, or I shall give up my life in a slow burning fire. So, and then the child was stolen, disappeared. So now what to do? Arjuna was getting ready for the slow burning fire, and Krishna intervened. And Krishna then took Arjuna on his chariot, and they drove right through the skies and to the layers that surround the universe. Said there is a layer of earth, then 10 times thicker, a layer of water, 10 times thicker, a layer of fire, 10 times thicker, a layer of air, and then we go 10 times thicker ether, and so on, and we go through all the various elements. Right? And Arjuna was traveling there, and there was no light, but the Sudarshan Chakra lit the way, and then finally they came to Mahavishnu. And it turned out that it was Mahavishnu had been stealing the children, because Mahavishnu knew Arjuna he could understand that Arjuna would be challenged to stand guard, would then be tricked, and then Krishna would have to save Arjuna, and that in this way Mahavishnu could get a darshan of Krishna. So it was a trick. Anyway, leaving that point aside, so we see that the distance to just Mahavishnu's abode is quite a distance. And yet for the devotee, it is not a long journey to the spiritual world. It is not. The spiritual world is right here, right now. It is only our consciousness that separates us from the spiritual world. If we are now in pure transcendental consciousness, then the spiritual world is here. So in the process of bhakti, the aim is to become a resident of the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada, of course, in a sense, if he had a motto, one might say that it would have been back to Godhead. He named his magazine like that, and he was emphasizing this back to Godhead, which was a little bit different, because we find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and in the teachings of our acharyas, we find Prema Puvarta Mahan, that the goal of human life is to attain Krishna Prem. But Prabhupada was not speaking an awful lot about Krishna Prem. One will not find endless explanations on Krishna Prem, but one will find so many references about going back to Godhead, back to home. That was Prabhupada's common theme. Yes. And that is available here and now, in this life. And simply, we have to become residents of the spiritual world now, internally. Appreciating that that's where it's really happening. Whatever is happening in the world, in the news, or wherever, what we see so many things. So many things happen in the material world. I have the strangest experiences. I have a disciple in England who believes in driving in old cars because he's a brahmachari and it feels more renounced. Right? So we're driving this old car, and believe it or not, the car caught on fire. I mean, there's like flames shooting out of the front of the from under the hood. Right? So we jump out of the car, and suddenly, on the other side of the street, a man stops and he comes running out with a fire extinguisher, and he puts it out. I mean, strange things can happen, you know, the unexpected, right? It is possible. Anything can happen, anytime. And I have many stories of things that can happen. Yeah? I was, yesterday Bhakti Charu Maharaj was here in Mayapur. I stayed in Bhakti Charu Maharaj's quarters as a guest, and at 6 a.m. in the morning, it was as if someone was attacking the wall with a sledgehammer. So I'm looking at it. It looked like some big hammer coming through the wall. So I'm looking at the wall. Next moment, there's a crack in the wall and a crack right through the floor. I didn't know I could fly, but I could. I flew out of that room. I don't know how I did it, but I even grabbed Giriraj, and I grabbed the computer and the phone, and I just flew out of the room. That was quite amazing.
Very scary, very scary. Very scary.
Yeah, maybe scary, but also exciting. Out of the ordinary, not boring. So anyway, so many things can happen in the material world, and we can talk about it, tell stories about it, and it's entertaining. But all these things are part of the temporary, illusory nature. They are not real. Yes, they are real, but not real in the sense that they all disappear. So many things have gone. Have you also experienced, like, there was a house where I used to live, and it's no more. They've demolished it. It's weird. There was a place where I used to work, and now that place also is no more. It is sometimes strange how over time one's life can just be erased. Gone. We used to go here. Sorry, sir, but there used to be... Well, never heard of that. Huh? It's strange. Like you grew up in a certain house, then you moved on, and you go back 50 years later, and there are strangers living in that house. And you sort of feel, hey, that's our house. I grew up here, that's my house. What are these people doing in my house? But they're in there. All temporary. In this world. Yeah? So, therefore, how important is it all? How meaningful is it all? How much is it worth it to allow our consciousness to enter into these things and to remember them and to think about them and to talk about them and to dream about them and to lay awake at night at all the things that can happen and that have happened and that might happen again, and then and everything that didn't happen, oh my God, all the things that didn't happen, and so on. So all this, we're getting so excited by the three modes of material nature. So gradually we have to shift. We have to shift our attention to Krishna, and to Krishna in his world, in the spiritual world, where he's performing his pastimes. That is what is important. And the more we begin to to appreciate Krishna and what Krishna is doing, then gradually our consciousness will shift away from this material energy, from the bodily concept of life to the spiritual world, and eventually will become resonance of the spiritual world. That we, by service, sevan mukhe, by chanting, we can transfer ourselves to that consciousness. And then we are in the spiritual world. Then we can be here as residents of the spiritual world. So that is what really matters. I once wanted to see the deity of Madan Mohan. So that deity of Sanatana Goswami, Madan Mohan, is a bit far, because due to the Muslims coming into Vrindavan and starting to break deities, so the deities were all moved. And then this Madan Mohan initially was in Jaipur, but later went to Karoli. And Karoli is a bit far, part of Rajasthan, and the road to Karoli is like, it's super hilly, very hilly road. And then one finally comes there to Karoli, and it's a nice village, and on a hill there is the temple of Sri Radha Madan Mohan. And they're very nice deities, because Sri Radha Madan Mohan are smiling. Very nice. So I was there, and the pujari was also very nice. He was also smiling, and he said, "Do you want some Mahaprasad?" Well, I'm one, when it comes to that, I'll never say no. So I said, "Oh, definitely." And then he said, "Please come." So he gave me a full plate of Mahaprasad, and I honored that prasad, and it was very wonderful. And then I started a conversation with him and said, "Oh, so wonderful here in Karoli, such a nice place. Here the influence of Kali Yuga is not so present. Here is a very transcendental, sweet atmosphere." And I was sort of speaking from I know what Kali Yuga is like, I've been in Australia. So in this way, I was trying to impress him, right? And he looked at me and he said, what's a Kali Yuga? There are 1,000 Kali Yugas in a day of Brahma. And so to him, that pujari had a very transcendental vision. I realized that. He's not small time. He has this udara di, this broader intelligence. He's seeing the bigger picture. He's not allowing his consciousness to go into the small things of this world. He's not Ksudratma, a small-minded man. He is Mahatma. He is a great man. I understood. And so, in this way, Srila Prabhupada completely, always a resident of the spiritual world, was present in this world. Like, what if I would try to glorify Srila Prabhupada and I would say, and then at the end of his life, he went back to Godhead. What would you say about that? If you would say yes. Well, I would say, if someone would say that, okay, I'm not impressed. What do you mean Prabhupada went back to Godhead? I would say, Prabhupada never left Godhead. Where's the question that he went back? He was there all along. Right? Was there ever a time he was not with Godhead? Of course he was there all along and back to Godhead. What do you mean? He never left. That's what I would say. So that would not be a great way to glorify Srila Prabhupada, to say he went back to Godhead. Rather, Prabhupada was always there. that is the point. That is the point. Of course, I remember a lecture which was given by one of our senior sannyasis in Vrindavan in 1980, and named Trivikram Maharaj. And Trivikram Maharaj was speaking in the festival, and there were many, many devotees there. And then Maharaj said, he said, lately I've been having some doubts. You think, what kind of lecture is this? So strange, you know. Then he said, I am not sure if Prabhupada went back to Godhead. And we're all like, no, it can't be true. No. And of the Vyasa-san? No. I mean, and Trivikram Maharaj, you know, like such a, known as a real Prabhupada man, you know, I mean, one of the early Prabhupada devotees, one of the early devotees went to London. Trivikram Maharaj? No, it can't be true that he has such doubts. No. And Maharaj said, yes, lately I'm having doubts. I'm not sure if Prabhupada went back to Godhead. So he said, maybe he went to another universe to do it all over. That was the first time we ever heard that. Well, then it blew our mind. Now you may have heard that maybe Prabhupada went to another universe and maybe is doing it again. But he's not. But what about the spiritual world? Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. You know how these things go. When Nanda Maharaj comes with Krishna to the spiritual world, comes with Krishna from the spiritual world to the material world, what do you think? That in the spiritual world, in Gokul, there's a note on the fridge which says, just went to the material world, we'll be right back. What do you think? Huh? That it is like that? No. Nanda Maharaj is there also. At the same time. He's there, he's here. It's all possible. So Prabhupada can be in the spiritual world at the same time in another universe as well. All these things are possible. How can we understand the nature of the unlimited spiritual potency? How can we understand? Only fragments, only pieces, little pieces of the puzzle we get. Yesterday someone said, we like to ask stomp the Swami questions. I said, don't worry, the Swami will not be stomped, because the Swamis have tricks these days. It's simple. There are questions about things that we know. I call that the daylight of knowledge. Then we have questions about areas that are a little obscure. Right? It's not, we don't know much about it, but a little. I call that the twilight of knowledge. And then we have things we just don't know anything about. I call that the night of knowledge. So now people like to especially ask twilight questions. You know? Twilight questions are the most interesting. But there are some twilight matters. It is some matters where we don't have so much information. Where there's a little information here, a little information there. What are the demigods having for breakfast? Somaras? I don't know. I mean, why don't you go there and find out? It's a twilight question. I have these questions. If in the spiritual world everything is conscious, then is an apple conscious? Then what if someone eats an apple? Are they then eating the conscious apple? I mean, how can you understand the spiritual world? We heard when Mother Yasoda is cooking the rice, right? And she wants to know if the rice is cooked, right? Well, how do you check if rice is cooked? Does anybody know about cooking rice? You know cooking rice? How do you check?
You smash it. You see if it's
You take all the rice and smash it? No, that.
just a grain.
Huh?
Just a couple of grains.
You take a couple of grains and you smash it. But in the spiritual world, when Mother Yasoda wants to check if the rice is cooked, she doesn't smash a few grains. She just asks the rice, "Are you cooked?" And the rice says, "Yes, I am cooked." So this we get from the acharyas. Right? This we find in some of the script, some of the literature of the acharyas. How can you understand these things? Rice, are you cooked? But how can you eat that rice? I was like, I don't know. This is twilight, you know? And this is like beyond realization. Right? We just get pieces of the puzzle and then we are puzzled. We are puzzled. It leaves us, you know, this doesn't answer anything, this just creates more confusion. But it is interesting though, that such things are there. So that spiritual world goes beyond our imagination. It's not like a better version of the world we know. In the spiritual world, it's something like Jehovah's Witnesses have this thing, and then heaven will descend on earth. And then everybody will love each other. There's no more arguments, no more fighting, and the animals are all together happy, and human beings will not eat animals anymore, and all these things. And it's some sort of idea of what a heavenly life is. So we can think about the spiritual world, but we don't know. Therefore we go to the pastimes of Krishna, which he performed here on this planet, which are a little different, because here he kills demons, that he doesn't do in the spiritual world. There he apparently plays with demons, so says Sanatana Goswami. Yeah. Personalities like Sanatana Goswami, they are Parisat devotees of the Lord. They are actually residents of the spiritual world, and they're able to glance into the spiritual world or communicate with the spiritual world. So Sanatana Goswami told us that Kaliya came back in the spiritual world, and Kaliya was there in the Yamuna. You thought that Kaliya was okay? No. Kaliya was back in the Yamuna. But no problem. Krishna bridled Kaliya, put reins through the noses of Kaliya, took these reins in the hand, and then with the cowherd boys was racing up and down the Yamuna. And he describes like that in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And what can we say? It just blows your mind. It blows our mind when we hear such things. So we are behind the acharyas. We cannot see the spiritual world now, but the more because we still have a desire to be in the material world. We don't mind chanting Hare Krishna as long as we can be in the material world. I don't mind doing some devotional service, but don't take away my material world. Oh no. And so it is actually because of our attachment to the material world that we are not able to see the spiritual world. It's not that you have to develop mystic power to see the spiritual world, just have to let go of matter. Right? That's the way it is. Not now, okay, I don't have that mystic power yet, therefore I cannot see the spiritual world. No. We're still covered. Naham prakasa sarvasya yoga maya samavitaha. It was avrita. Avritam jnanametena yoginam nityavairina. Kama rupena kunteya dushpurena nalena cha. We're still covered by that karma, by lust. And because of lust, we are not able to perceive the spiritual world. Although we are there. We're right there. And we're walking here and we're thinking, the spiritual world, will I ever get there? It's so far away, so far from my bed. And all it takes is to let go of the material world, fully dedicate all our energy in service of Krishna, and we're there immediately. So these kind of things are amazing if you think about it. And I think about these things from time to time, and just think about that a lot, actually, about that spiritual world, and I think about what is happening there, and what it would be like to be part of there. I don't understand this story about the rice. I can only repeat the story. Don't ask me to explain it. I don't know how it works. I'm puzzled, but it's interesting. It's certainly interesting. I'd like to know more. I'd like to come closer to that spiritual world. And of course not qualified, but hoping for mercy. Hoping for mercy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, all the acharyas in the line, Prabhupada. I hope for the mercy of all. In Vrindavan, on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance festival, every year many Vaishnavas come to honor Srila Prabhupada, and also some of his god brothers used to come. So I remember that Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, who became very old, over 100 years old. And I think the last time he came to our temple was when he was 93. So at that time it was difficult to walk. And there were 4 brahmacharis carrying him towards the Vyasasan, and they kind of dropped him on the Vyasasan, and he sort of wasn't a soft landing. I said, oh, I saw that and think, it's not easy to be 93. And then he spoke. And what he said was, it was very short. He said, Swamiji, meaning Prabhupada, he said, Swamiji made all of you Vaishnavas. He said, and Vaishnavas have the power to bless. So you all, please bless me. That was it. That was his speech. And it was so short and so to the point and profound, because I was thinking that he acknowledged that all these people from all over the world were Vaishnavas. That was the first thing. And that the Vaishnavas were carrying blessing. And at 93, he must have been thinking, I can leave any moment. I need all the blessings I can get. So therefore, he asked, he said, Prabhupada made you all Vaishnavas, and Vaishnavas can bless, so you please bless me. So I say the same tonight, you please bless me. You can, because you're all Vaishnavas. So please bless me. Because we also need all the blessings we can get. We do. It is only by the blessings of the Vaishnavas. I pray that somehow or other my actions may improve to the point that every Vaishnava will think good about me. It's not easy, I step on a few toes here and there. I don't know if you ever do, but I've done on many in the past, and I didn't care about it also. Well, if they put their toes under my feet, it's not my fault. But these days, I'm more careful to not step on toes, but it may still happen inadvertently. My mother, when I was a kid, children, listen. Hey, listen, this is for kids. This is for kids. my mother told me a story, and there were two princesses. Said, and one princess, when she opened her mouth, roses would come out. And the other princess, when she opened her mouth, frogs would jump out. Which princess you want to be? Roses or frogs? Frogs, you said? Oh, roses. Yeah, so now they were two princesses, but in my case, I try for roses, but every once in a while a frog jumps out. And then what you do? I'm not going to put it back. It bounces around. So sometimes I say things and afterwards I think, shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have. We make mistakes. Oh, we make mistakes. So what to do? But we have to try to act in such a way that every Vaishnava is thinking favorably of us. That is the... because we need all the blessings we can get, every single one. If the Vaishnavas think good about us, then Krishna, that may put weight in the scale. You know, at the end of life, there's a scale, right? And okay, and here is your devotional service. It didn't move at all. Now what do we do? Now what do we do? But it is a whole life of devotional service. Yeah, we even put last life in also, okay. It still doesn't barely lift the thing off the ground, you know, now what, you know. What else can we put in the scale? Alright. Prabhupada's mercy, okay. The scale really moves now, you know. Okay, the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, okay. That adds up, right? So in this way, all these things go in the scale. We need all these things in the scale. If we really want to go back to Godhead, we need all these things. So, all the blessings of the Vaishnavas, all mercy, all the mercy. Not just a little, we need all the mercy. So, and that mercy, of course, yeah, Krishna made it widely available, especially in the holy name, especially in the holy Dham. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says an interesting thing. He says, without realizing the import of the holy Dham, one cannot understand Nam. No? That's something. Right? Somewhere along the line, these two go together. It is natural. It is said, Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. We go from the name to the form of Krishna, to the qualities of Krishna, to the pastimes of Krishna, to the abode of Krishna. You cannot separate Krishna from his abode. Therefore, ultimately, the name takes us there, to that name, to that abode. So I spoke today about the transcendental abode of the Supreme Lord. I sketched it. I gave some examples of how it is in a way beyond our ability to understand. And yet, we must try to approach that world as home. That is home. The spiritual world. And of course the Holy Dham is revealing that to us. And the Holy Name, and Srimad Bhagavatam, and devotee association, and the deities, because the altar is not just the altar. You see this wall here? This boundary? If you step over that, you're in the spiritual world. You realize that? That is the spiritual world there. The whole thing, you could just jump right over it. 1, 2, 3, there you go. It's not high. You could do it. Brahmanas are allowed to go on there, but only on the strict rules and regulations, because they are not yet qualified. But if they follow the rules and regulations, then they can actually serve Krishna in his world. So that's what it's about. Otherwise, we want Krishna. Otherwise, we look at Krishna for our world. Oh, there's the old, oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz, and kind of prayers. No. Let us see, what does Krishna need? What does Krishna want? What does Krishna like? Does Krishna like the ice cream from the supermarket with all the E numbers on it? Or what does Krishna like? What does he like? Or do we like that and we offer it to Krishna? Here Krishna, some nice ice cream for you. Ding, ding, ding. Krishna didn't even finish eating. So let us come to that selfless consciousness of the spiritual world. Anyway, it's a meditation. And such a meditation is important. See, we can all do the same things. We can all be in the temple and we can all chant Hare Krishna. But we are in different states of consciousness. We have a different meditation. So one is thinking, oh Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, please help me. Hare Krishna, 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 Krishna. Oh Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Oh Krishna, please solve all my problems. Oh Krishna, 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 I really need Krishna. Oh Krishna, I don't know how to go. Krishna, please, please, Krishna, give me a piece of cake today. Yes, can ask. But better is if we give Krishna a piece of cake. That's better. So in other words, to become selfless. Anyway, I'm talking about a meditation. I'm talking about the spiritual world. I'm talking about gradually becoming a resident of the spiritual world and understanding that the spiritual world is what really matters, and that matter doesn't spirit, if you know what I'm talking about. So, in other words, that matter is not really very important, and that we should not allow our spirit to become so absorbed in these material affairs. That is my point for the evening. I'm ending now. Any questions? Any comments? Yes.
You're making consideration about Srila Prabhupada's current whereabouts. I believe you said we're going to have another ISKCON in the spiritual world. Would you like to say something?
Yeah. No, I wasn't the one who... I just told the story of Trivikram Maharaj, wasn't it? That's all I did. So I don't know where Prabhupada is. I said what could be, what is possible. Prabhupada did say there would be another ISKCON in the spiritual world. I mean, yeah. That must be quite an amazing ISKCON, spiritual world ISKCON. So these are, for me, they're all pieces of a puzzle, and I don't have the full picture of the puzzle. I only have pieces, and therefore I cannot really I can only say, yeah, here's it. This piece of the puzzle, that piece of the puzzle, but I can't give you the full picture. So that's all. I know your story and your point. But Trivikram Maharaj's thought is also significant. I can't dismiss it. Right? So, all pieces of a puzzle. And maybe Prabhupada's in the spiritual world and in the material world. Like I said, Nanda Maharaj and the note on the fridge. I don't know. Yeah, but he's also here. He was also in New York. He was in New York, but also in Vrindavan, but also in New York. At the same time. Just see. Just see. Yes.
Just
A little louder.
comment I got from his wife. Master used to say that the death will be just like a bump on the road if we are absorbed in the spiritual activities and if we are meditating on Krishna's pastimes. Basically what you said, the whole lecture, but just this. And I think first now it becomes a little bit clear what it means, for me at least, what it means to shift to the spiritual world. To meditate on pastimes and to try to get to mercy of the Vaishnavas. Because they say that you cannot go to the spiritual world if you're not in the spiritual world, like consciousness. Is that correct?
To meditate on the pastimes of Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam is the foremost description of Krishna for us. It's the topmost scripture, and it is our central scripture, and all other books that we read are connected to it. Like the Bhagavad Gita leads up to it, the Nectar of Devotion draws from it, the Chaitanya Charitamrita expands on it, and so many other scriptures that we study are all supporting the Bhagavatam and bringing us to deeper penetrate into the Bhagavatam. So when it comes to the pastimes, we go for the pastimes of the Bhagavatam as our principal focus. And meditating on Krishna is not only on his pastimes but also on his purpose. It's said one of the symptoms of surrender is to have no other interest than the interest of Krishna. So to really, what is Krishna's purpose? So to deeply meditate on what is Krishna's purpose rather than our purpose. As far as entering into the spiritual world, yes, qualification is required, pure. How pure does one have to be to enter into the spiritual world? The key is one has to somehow or other have satisfied Krishna. When Krishna is satisfied with us, that's enough. And then if there's impurity, he'll take it away. He can just take that away. So the key is what we have to satisfy Krishna. So it's not mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the purest of all? Simply we have to go out of our way to sacrifice, to satisfy Krishna. Now we fall short in that. And then I said all that mercy goes in the scale of the blessings of all the acharyas and of all the Vaishnavas. That adds on to the weight. So like this. So it's our service, our purity, and then all the mercy. All goes in the scale, and that does it.
On the topic of consciousness, when we're doing activities like leading kirtan or giving a talk, should we be thinking about trying to focus our mind on Vrindavan and its pastimes, or should we try to engage? Should we be conscious of the audience and trying to engage them as best we can?
So when we are talking about consciousness, should we focus on, in the course of service, should we focus on Vrindavan and pastimes, or should we focus on the audience when we're performing the kirtan? Ultimately, Prabhupada said, we are not catering to the audience, we're chanting for the pleasure of Krishna. Prabhupada explained like that. Yet, it is also very pleasing to Krishna if we can absorb the audience or the devotees or whoever is there in chanting. Right? So certainly, if you can chant and bring people closer to the more absorbed in the name, closer to the name, then that is very pleasing to Krishna. So both can be there. Both can be there, but the focus is the pleasure of Krishna. So, I mean, not that we chant for the audience. I gurgle every morning in the bathroom for 20 minutes, and therefore I have this amazing alap. Bapi. This alap. This alap I have. This alap. Not frog, alap. So, in other words, when we are too conscious of the audience, we get carried away by showbiz, because so whatever we do with the audience must be done for the pleasure of Krishna, to bring them closer to Krishna. Then, yes, work with the audience. And again, thinking about the pastimes of Krishna is good, but more important is to think about the purpose of Krishna and see the pastimes of Krishna in that light. Otherwise we just, pastimes of Krishna. Vrindavan. No, more from, what is Vrindavan? Vrindavan means everything is an arrangement for the pleasure of Krishna. So instead of walking here, Vrindavan, 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 Vrindavan. No, we are meant to get that mood of doing everything for the pleasure of Krishna. Then we are in Vrindavan. That is the meditation of Vrindavan. Be like the residents of Vrindavan, completely absorbed in doing everything for the pleasure of Krishna. That's Vrindavan. Not Vrindavan, Vrindavan. We can call it Vrindavan, Vrindavan. But then we are not in Vrindavan, then we are outside of Vrindavan, calling out Vrindavan, Vrindavan. See the point? I don't know about that. I have 2 more questions there.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was wondering how, if you'd like to speak a little bit about how Srimati Radharani's mercy does Srimati...
How Srimati Radharani's mercy comes through Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual master. I wouldn't know any other way. Of course, I pray to the deity for some mercy. But that's, and in chant Hare Krishna, and Radharani is there. So she manifests in various ways. But ultimately, I am Gopi Partha Pada Kamaliya Dasana 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 Dasana. Servant of the 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 servant. So, by serving our spiritual master, we become connected to that mercy of Radharani. Still we pray to the deities, as I said. There she manifests. In name she manifests. So she does manifest. So we can pray like that. But it's not that I have a direct hotline to Radharani. Hey Radharani. No. Some other you.
With accumulating spiritual benefit, with accumulating spiritual benefit for a lifetime, right? If I don't make it back to God in this lifetime, and it goes through to the next lifetime, do you? Because I've heard that you pretty much take off where you left it. is it more to do with remembrance through sadhana, or the fact that you actually already accumulated a certain amount of spiritual benefit that brings you back to Krishna?
Everything, sadhana, service, preaching, giving out the mercy, all these things. So it's not only about sadhana and very serious sadhana, oh very good. No, it's also about being very compassionate and being very eager to give, to bring others.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about, because I'm a bit concerned about my false ego, like it's pretty dense.
Yeah, well, you're honest, and many of us are not. That's the only difference between you and
It
us.
doesn't make it any easier though, because it's still, it's like, you know, a Titanic.
Well, it's also not easy for all of.
Face.
It's also not easy for all of those of us who are hiding our false ego and act as if we don't have it.
Yeah.
Same thing. Whether you hide it or whether you admit it, we all have a pretty thick false ego.
That's what makes you
Thick,
forget, isn't it?
thick as a brick, you know.
The false ego makes you forget, isn't it?
In my language, we have a thing where we say, this guy has a block of concrete in front of his face. Yeah? And we all have a block of concrete in front of our heads, so that's the problem. But anyway, the kirtans and so on smash it gradually. I mean, we cannot overcome it ourselves, but Krishna will do it. So as long as we connect, then it will get smashed.
Once it's smashed, it can't go back to that same old habit ever again, can it?
You know, don't worry about it. Yeah, somehow or other. We just get absorbed in hearing, chanting, taking Krishna prasadam, and in the process, that false ego just slowly, it breaks. First it crumbles, breaks down, it disappears. Krishna takes it away. So I've read. Meanwhile, I've got a big block in front of my head.
I'm just wondering if in material nature you actually can be objected to reliving the same sinful acts, even though you're residing about not committing it again.
Yeah, we can relive the same sinful act again and again, even while we are devotees. But once we are devotees, while we are committing these same sinful acts, we really know that we shouldn't. If our perspective has changed. Before, we might have done these things in ignorance, but now we're not in ignorance anymore. And therefore, you can't really do it in the same way as we did before we had this transcendental knowledge. Before we just did these things in ignorance and thought it was okay. Now we know I'm a fool for doing these things. So therefore we can't maintain it very long. We'll give it up after some time. Because we have knowledge now.
Even in the next lifetime.
Maybe in this one. Many things will happen in this one.
No, I've got no interest in having this lifetime. I'm just wondering from next lifetime in case...
Next life also, this
I've got no
life.
interest in staying the same.
Yeah, can happen this life, can happen tomorrow, can happen tonight. Why not? No. It's very powerful, and this Krishna consciousness, it just enters in so many ways in our consciousness, and it works there. It's not just, okay, and now I've been chanting for 2 years. No, it goes on, it works. It's not just now I got all this benefit in my spiritual bank account. It sits there, I have it. No, it's gone in, and it's just bubbling there and doing things there. It's just whatever's gone in, it's working. It's working on us, on our consciousness. So it's not just like, okay, it's all in the bank account and that's it. No. Whatever we've done, it's working on our consciousness in some ways.
It's just sometimes ignorance feels pretty linear. It's just like a dead, absence of heartbeat and all that. Mind stuff.
Yeah, ignorance is ignorance, but Krishna's mercy, penetrates right through the thickest layers of ignorance. Okay. Yeah, me too. I also looked at my watch before, about 3 minutes ago. So I think now it was even more than 3 minutes. It's 8:21. I think it's a good time to call it quits. He wants another kirtan. He has to come back tomorrow. Because don't squeeze the orange too much. The Sringadev prays, why? Tomorrow. Yeah, you get too tired. Not too tired. It's for you. It's one. For you, I'm here only short. But for me, it's all the time. So little rest, and then I do it tomorrow.